a simple fly. You could call it a guide fly if you want, and you can call it anything if you want. But this was originated by a guy named Loren Williams. Now, Loren Williams was a member of the United States fly tying team, been all over the world, fished all over the world in all different kinds of competitions and stuff like that. And he developed this pattern over time. One of his philosophies in tying flies is to try to reduce as many steps as possible to make a kiss. Keep it simple, stupid, okay? And the original pheasant tail fly historically goes back to a guy named Frank Sawyer, who was a river keeper over in England. And he tied what he called a pheasant tail with just a few fibers for the tail. The rest of it was all copper wire. All of it. Copper wire, the whole thing. Thorax and abdomen, the whole bit. And what made it effective, I guess, was that it fished near the bottom. So in all of our fishing here, especially with nymphs, closer to the bottom you can get and stay in that bottom zone is the most productive. So anyways, a guy named Al Troth, again another Pennsylvania fisherman, I think, he developed what we are most familiar with, the pheasant tail nymph. And then Loren Williams, who was born and fished all of his younger years up in northeastern Pennsylvania, up in the mountains and all those streams. Over time, he took Altroth and minimized it to make it a very simple fly. And then I think Loren Williams went to Penn State, so he spent at least 4 years fishing all the streams around Penn State. And he was with all the regular Penn State guys around Spring Creek and Big Spring, you know, all those different places down there. So at any rate, so this is just called a pheasant tail, the beadhead pheasant tail nymph. You've tied it before, I'm sure, but I thought we would revisit that. And this is copper. Now, his pattern, he calls for a scud hook. So when I got here today, we don't have any scud hooks. The ones that we do have are like size 8, which is way too big. So you want to get if you're going to tie this true to pattern, you would use a scud hook in a size 12 or 14, which is the most popular sizes. You can go smaller if you want, but 12 or 14.
Why do you want to use a scud hook?
Because of the gap and a better bite. Okay, so the first thing you do is you put the bead on the hook, and I've done that ahead of time because if I were to do it now, it would take me a half hour. So were you going to use some lead wire? Now in his pattern, he calls for tungsten, a bead. Now tungsten is heavier than lead, but we didn't have any tungsten beads, so this is just a regular bead. And you put on several wraps of lead wire. And you can vary this depending on the stream that you're fishing and how deep and how fast it's running. So you can load it up or minimize, you know, or take. And one of the things that I've tried to keep up with over the years is when I'm tying nymphs and I have some that are weighted and some that aren't weighted, I change the color of the thread so that I know if it's brown, then it's a heavy, and if it's black, it's maybe not weighted, you know. It just helps you when you're sorting through your fly box on the stream, you know, to pick a fly. Because to determine holding it in your cold hand on a spring day, it's pretty tough, so you can just look at it and see. So then you put that lead wire on and you push that up into the back of the bead. Now this pattern calls for brown thread. So you put your thread on and bring it to the back, just to the bend, just a little nip past the bend. Next, you're going to put on your copper wire. Now the copper wire you're going to put on the far side, and you can just lay that against the shank and tie it down. Now the reason we're going to put that on the far side is because when we wrap the peacock body, or the pheasant tail body, we're going to counter wrap. Instead of going clockwise, we're going to come counterclockwise when we finish this off. Excuse me. Next, you take a little clump of pheasant fibers, even the tips, and then we're going to cut the curlies off the end. The tips are even, and the tail on this you want to be 1/2 to 3/4 length of the shank. So it's got a pretty pronounced tail on it. So what we're going to do is measure, okay, that's roughly half. Bring your thread back to that anchor point. Lay this on the side of the hook. Take one turn and then bring it over the top to the top of the hook and take 2 turns. And then that's locked into place. Now you bring your thread all the way forward. Like I said, this is a very simple fly. Few steps, and you're going to wrap your pheasant tail up the shank of the hook. Easier said than done. Come on. Now, if I were at home, I'd be swearing, but I'm not. I'm trying to clean up my act. So you bring that to the front. Fingers aren't working. Can you identify with that? Mm-hmm. Yep.
No idea.
Now, there's another pattern almost identical to this using different materials. I'll tell you about it in a second here. So you clip off those. Now you counter wrap the copper wire. And this, I'm not happy with this. I don't have enough fibers on there to make it a little bulkier. So the next one we do, we'll bulk it up a little bit. And here, now you can helicopter this off, or you can cut it. But if you're going to cut it, use the deep in on your scissors. Don't use the tips to cut wire ever. Because Dr. Slick scissors aren't cheap. So this is the fly, and that's it. You can put any kind of finishing knot on it that you want. Now, I'm not really happy with this. Okay, I'm going to critique this because I'm not happy with it. My tail's too long, a little bit. And the body should be narrower at the back and tapering up almost like a carrot or bulk up. So that means that I didn't use enough fibers and I mismeasured. So that's how you want to critique your own work. One of the interesting things that I've found is even now I'll go back and look at some of old flies in my fly boxes that I started when I was 15. And they laugh.
Yeah.
And I want to throw them out, but I'm too cheap because I got so many hooks in there.
But sometimes those flies catch fish.
Yeah, dumb ones.
Yeah.
When you were 15, shouldn't the hooks rusted away by now?
Oh,
They're made out of bone.
they were mustad hooks, and I cut the snell off of them because, I mean, when you're 15 or 14, when I started, they didn't have any money, you know. So we go take your perch hook, you take the snell off of it, and tie your fly. You use a clothespin and use feathers out of a pillow and your mother's sewing thread.
Lint out of your pocket for dubbing.
All right, we're cutting this off now.